Welcome to Vermont Today. I'm Terry Jeroloman, and my guest this month is Marc Estrin. Marc is an author living in the old north end of Burlington. His most recent book is Skulk. I just finished reading it. It's a really interesting book, and I recommend it to everyone. And he's written a number of other books. His books are divided into four basic categories: agitation of the head, agitation of the heart, reflection on the whole, celebration of the whole. I'll read you a list of the different books here. Insect Dreams, The Half-Life of Gregor Samoza, that's written in 2002. The Education of Arnold Hitler, 2005. Golem's Song, 2006. The Lamentations of Julius Marantz, 2007. This is the Lamentations of Julius Marantz. I just finished reading that too. The Annotated Nose, Rehearsing with the Gods, Photographs and Essays on Bread and Puppet Theater. Now, Marc, your books are divided into four categories. The first one being agitation of the head. And the books that are listed in that category are Skulk, Julius Marantz, The Annotated Nose, and Insect Dreams. How do you perceive these as being the agitation of the head?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the books aren't divided that way. I mean, I came up with that list this morning, and they fell into four divisions. I don't think of writing a book to agitate the head, or because of agitation in my head. But what those four books have in common is the use of art, of fiction, to expose certain hidden facets of our culture, of our politics, of our human behavior, things that are not ordinarily recognized as operative. And so that's, I think, one of the major things that art can do is look at a face and see the structure behind the face, or see the hidden expression behind the eyes, or whatever, in graphic art. But fiction can certainly do that. Take an incident which might just ordinarily pass by unnoticed or with little notice, and explore its depths and try to see that. And so each of these books is looking at some hidden, or some collection of hidden facets that make things work the way they do, as I perceive it. That's all. The four books that you talked about, one is Skulk. I know we should probably talk about that today. Skulk was written to explore some of the issues around 9/11 that simply don't get looked at because we have an official story. Most people believe the official story. People don't want to look past the official story. So we don't. It's not treated in the media, et cetera, et cetera. Julius Marantz is about a lot of things, but it is partially exploring the kind of religious hysteria that's in the world today, and the hidden structures of government that support and feed and finance and nourish religious hysteria, which then feeds back and is used by these hidden structures. By the way, all these books are funny. When you talk about them, they sound like, really erector sets or serious mechanical drawings or whatever. I mean, they're comedies. All the books that are out there so far are comic novels. I have to say I'm working on some novels, my first novels, that are not comic novels. But I have six novels and one memoir, and they're all very funny because one of the things I see around me is humor, operating humor. It's hard for me to remember what these books are, so I made this list, and that's what I'm looking at. The Annotated Nose is also a book about hiddenness. For one thing, it's all about, this is The Annotated Nose. I like this cover a lot. It's about masks. The character literally wears 7 masks in his life, but it's also about the contemporary plague. And the contemporary plague is having to act out other people's hidden scripts and to be in plays, set as characters in plays that we didn't choose to be in, that are written by hidden playwrights. And
the nose there looks like that famous nose from the French play where every time the man lied, his nose would grow. Does it have any relationship to that?
I don't know what French play you're talking about. That's surely the major image in Pinocchio, which is an Italian story. And Pinocchio is one of the masks that he wears there. This actually is a plague doctor, a medieval plague doctor. And so this is the character as he winds up in the course of changing masks with ever bigger noses. And he winds up as a plague doctor. And he has an analysis, even though it's very funny, he has an analysis of the contemporary plague, which is fairly serious in its implications. And the last book there is Insect Dreams, in this category of hiddenness, trying to explore hiddenness. And the hiddenness that's being explored in Insect Dreams is the kind of trajectory of American history toward, and in my view, culminating in the creation of the atomic bomb in 1945. It has to do with racism, it has to do with xenophobia, has to do with following the technological imperative no matter where it leads. And all of these themes are traced out in Insect Dreams. The character is Gregor Samsa, not Gregor Samsa, which I think is funny. But Gregor Samsa is a very famous literary figure. He's the guy who Kafka turned into a cockroach, the man who turns into a cockroach. So the character in Insect Dreams is a 6-foot talking cockroach who eventually comes to America and meets FDR. He's pretty famous because a 6-foot talking cockroach would be pretty famous. And he gets involved with FDR, and he gets involved in FDR's brain trust. And when FDR wins the election in 1932, he moves into the White House. He becomes part of the New Deal, goes through a lot of stuff in contemporary American history, and he gets on FDR's nerves so much because he sees all of these things, because he's a cockroach. He has big eyes, he has antennae, you know. And he sees all of these themes going on behind the scenes and in between the scenes. And so he gets on Roosevelt's nerves. So Roosevelt sends him out to be the risk management consultant of the Manhattan Project. And the whole last part of the book is actually a very, very good history of the Manhattan Project out in Los Alamos, and then for the Trinity test down in Alamogordo. So this book, again, while being funny because it's seen through the eyes of a 6-foot talking cockroach, nevertheless is, I think, an insightful American history exploring some of the hidden strands that are functioning in the general things that people know. People know, you know, Roosevelt was president, we had a war, we had the bomb, we had the New Deal, we had Prohibition, we had Sacco and Vanzetti, but what about them? What do they show? If you connect all of those points in American history from 1920 to 1945, how can you characterize the trajectory? And so that's another exploration of hidden material. And
I'm glad we don't have any 6-foot cockroaches in my apartment house.
Well, you know, Gregor is really sweet. Gregor is the cockroach.
A sweet cockroach.
He's wonderful. I'm sure any mother would love her daughter to bring Gregor home to dinner, possibly even as a boyfriend. Gregor is a mensch. Gregor sees cruelty when there's cruelty and talks about it. And he's able to look at things that human beings, because he's not in the culture, because he's an outsider, he's able to see things and speak to them without being intimidated.